Ladies and gentlemen, Sunday night, the superstars of the WWA will be taking their turn to climb the corporate ladder. Okay, will the risk be worth the reward? Okay, will they reach the top 4 of WWA headquarters and grab the prestigious Money in the Bank briefcase, where 82% of the time when you catch in, you become champion? That show's Sunday night. Personally, because of the build that WWE have put on for us in the lead up to this show, I couldn't really care less. Granted, before you dislike and leave your hate comment, I'll say this. I'm very intrigued to see what the Money in the Bank match, because everything's happening at once for some reason, so I'll be fascinated to see what the Money in the Bank match looks like and how they pull that off, because there's so many ways they could have done that, and apparently that was filmed weeks ago, so they've had plenty of time to play around with that and make it as good as it could possibly be. So with that being said, I'm interested there. But really, the main thing I'm interested in on the whole show is Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, the WWE Championship. Personally, it's the only match that I'm actually genuinely invested in as a match. Okay, Drew McIntyre is champion. As much as WWE have tried to... Do I use the word ruin? Yeah, stuff it. As much as WWE have tried to ruin Drew McIntyre's run by just doing these illogical matches, they put Drew McIntyre in Raw main events, which is cool, in matches that are not dream matches, but they're matches which a bunch of fans, like myself included, would think, that's a cool matchup. So, for example, we saw on Raw this past week, Drew McIntyre versus Murphy. Most people think, that's a pretty cool matchup, McIntyre and Murphy, two guys who are incredibly talented, and you give them 5 minutes? Really? And we saw the same thing with Angel Garza a couple of weeks ago. They're doing Drew McIntyre no favors, okay? McIntyre, unless they really, really just keep doing this and trying to ruin him, I'm gonna... Look, the thing with Drew McIntyre, personally, I'm such a big fan of him, and he has such a big supporter base in the IWC, YWC, but WWE, given their track record, their proven track record of taking a champion and ruining them, like Seth Rollins last year, they could well ruin Drew McIntyre, so hopefully they don't ruin Drew McIntyre, but that's a little side tangent. The match itself, McIntyre versus Rollins, personally I'm really excited for it. The two women's matches, two women's matches, one women's match, because Becky Lynch is too busy being an actor, and she has no opponents because she had to beat the whole division, so Becky Lynch is off acting at the moment. Meanwhile, the SmackDown Women's Championship is on the line. Bayley defends against Tamina. So, that match is happening, I guess. Will Tamina win the title? I really hope she doesn't, so... Yeah, we've got that match to look forward to, so to speak. Additionally, we've got the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, Fatal 4-Way. This match, I'm not really excited for it. I'd be lying if I said I was, because it's literally just WWE throwing the SmackDown Tag Team division in the ring and saying, look, watch them wrestle. So, the New Day defending against Miz and Morrison. Hey, hey, ho, ho. God, that's awful. Lucha House Party, who they dragged out of catering for this match, as well as the Forgotten Sons, who in NXT they were quite literally forgotten about, and now all of a sudden we're supposed to care about them on Raw. Oh, sorry, SmackDown, same thing. So, yeah, we've got that Fatal 4-Way tag match for the SmackDown tag titles. Do I care about that? You bet I don't, because SmackDown did a terrible job of building it up. Additionally, I'm assuming they'll add a Viking Raiders versus Street Profits match after what we saw on Raw. Now, as I'm making this video, that's not officially confirmed, but I assume we'll get that. And then there's the Universal Championship match, which is a lose-lose situation. Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt. This match is I'll get to it later. So, yeah, now I'm about to get into my proper preview and predictions for each match. And I guess I might as well start with the Money in the Bank match, men/women, because it's all happening at once. It's going to be just an absolute mess. It's going to be a train wreck, okay? My preview for this match, so the Women's Championship contract match, whatever, is Asuka, who is the person I want to win. I think Asuka winning would make a lot of sense. It doesn't make much sense at all because she lost to Becky earlier in the year, but at the same time, out of the rest of this field, I'd much rather see Asuka win to anyone else. So, Asuka versus Shayna Baszler, who was ruined by Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, when Shayna destroyed the whole Raw Women's division and then got pinned by Becky Lynch in 8 minutes. That killed off Shayna's momentum. Nia Jax, who is everyone's favourite right now after she nearly murdered Kairi Sane. Okay, to be fair, I actually like Nia Jax. No, hear me out. I like Nia Jax because the amount of jokes I can make about her, genuinely, for example, on Raw, when Shayna Baszler and Asuka, kicked Nia Jax, and Nia Jax fell backwards. I was making jokes about how Nia Jax, botched and broke the chair. that kind of stuff. And you can joke about how Nia Jax botches and injures microphones, or for example in this matchup, Nia Jax gets in an elevator to just take the easy way up to the top, but then the elevator, she botches and breaks the elevator, that kind of stuff. So I like Nia Jax, you can joke about her, but in the ring, she's god-awful, she's super unsafe. I don't really care about it in that regard. So additionally, the women, Dana Brooke, who cares? Lacey Evans, who cares? Carmella, who cares? So the SmackDown Women's Division is god-awful, as we can see by these three competitors. So that's your field. Asuka, Shayna, Nia, Dana Brooke, Lacey, and Carmella. A terrible field, okay? The SmackDown side's garbage. The Raw side, both Asuka and Shayna have lost to Becky this year, and then Nia Jax is Nia Jax. So that field's god-awful. The men, on the other hand, Daniel Bryan, I mean, you can't really hate Daniel Bryan being in this match. I don't really mind it. It's Daniel Bryan after all. He's great as a heel, great as a face. He's kind of just floundering at the moment though. So Bryan's there. Rey Mysterio really is there. Like, Rey's just in this match, No one's talking about Rey Mysterio. He's just in the match. Aleister Black, who I believe should win. King Corbin, God forbid he wins it. And Otis, he's just in the match for the sake of it. And AJ Styles, who won the gauntlet match on Raw. So those are your two fields. What do I expect from the match? I expect it'll be a complete chaotic mess. It's going to be a cluster you-know-what. It's going to be an S show. Okay, just that's me being a family-friendly channel here in the IWYWSA. So, yeah, it's going to be a complete cluster F. It's just going to be an absolute mess. Okay, you're going to have spots where Aleister Black, Black Masses, or he goes to Black Mass Baron Corbin, but then Corbin ducks and Aleister Black kicks a chandelier and the chandelier breaks. You're going to have crap where Nia Jax is running through walls. Otis is probably going to run through a wall and smash a window. You're going to have probably AJ Styles throwing random objects at Daniel Bryan in a boardroom. It's just going to be an absolute train wreck. Lacey Evans probably goes to punch, I don't know, Asuka, but then Asuka ducks and Lacey Evans punches a mirror. All of this random stuff, you're gonna see it on Sunday. Will someone get thrown off the roof? No. Will it be cool if someone does? Kinda. Not that I'm insinuating I want to see murder in this match, but if you want to make the match memorable, then, I'm just saying, So, yeah, you can have someone, go flying off the roof. They have mentioned that a few times, which, knowing WWE, if they've mentioned it, they're probably going to do it, because that's how they do it. That's how they roll. So, if someone gets thrown off a roof, that's my title and my review done. So, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, the match is going to be an absolute mess. For the women, for my prediction, I'm going to say Nia Jax is going to win, which the main reason I say that, I talked about in my Raw review, which a lot of you guys have seen. That's doing mad views at the moment. So, yeah, I think Nia Jax is going to win, mainly because they played the little vignette that said Becky Lynch on Raw next week, so this coming Monday, to discuss, confront the women's Money in the Bank winner. So, in other words, it's going to be someone from Monday Night Raw, unless they want to have, Dana Brooke win it and come to Raw, which would make absolutely zero sense. But it's going to be a Raw woman, and keeping in mind that Asuka and Shayna Baszler have both lost to Becky Lynch very recently in programs, the only one that makes sense is Nia Jax. So, unfortunately, I'm predicting Nia Jax to win the women's Money in the Bank contract, which, as I said in the Raw review also, because of the nuclear heat she has online, because of how she nearly murdered Kairi Sane and paralyzed her as well. That makes no sense, but yeah, because she nearly murdered Kairi Sane. I think Nia Jax, she's the logical winner. That pains me to say, but yeah, Nia Jax will win the women's one. Do I want her to win? No. Out of this field, I want Asuka to win, but they're not going to have Asuka win. It's going to be Nia Jax winning this match, and we're all going to feign backlash online. So Nia Jax wins the women's contract. For the men, it's going to be Aleister Black or AJ Styles who need to win. I think WWE are probably going to look at this field and give it to King Corbin. I can see that now. I really can. And once again, it pains me to see that King Corbin could win this match. Now, that said, I assume that Jinder Mahal would win the gauntlet on Raw, so I'm happy he wasn't in it and he didn't win. So we don't have to deal with Jinder Mahal and Nia Jax potentially both winning Money in the Bank contracts. That said, Nia Jax will probably win the women's one. My prediction for the men, personally, I want Aleister Black to win. I think he's the logical winner. Aleister Black with the Money in the Bank contract just fits, gives him something, because otherwise he's just kind of a creepy guy who likes striking, and that's really his only thing. As for other competitors, AJ Styles, him winning would be good, but in my opinion, AJ Styles doesn't need the Money in the Bank contract to take on Drew McIntyre. I feel like AJ Styles can have a program Drew McIntyre coming out of Money in the Bank in the build-up to whatever the next pay-per-view is a Backlash, I think. So AJ Styles versus Drew McIntyre can be the next program there. I don't feel like Styles needs Money in the Bank. I really don't. I think Aleister Black kind of needs it more. So I'm predicting Aleister Black to win. So that's my Money in the Bank ladder match predictions where they climb the corporate headquarters. So Aleister Black for the men, Nia Jax for the women. But at the same time, if Baron Corbin wins, I would not be shocked. So that's that. Next up, I'm going to talk about the SmackDown Women's title match really quickly. Bayley versus Tamina. Look, if this can go one of two ways. Either Sasha Banks flat out costs Bayley the women's title, and Tamina becomes the SmackDown Women's Champion. Yes, I know a bunch of you just threw up in your mouths when I said that, but maybe they do that. Maybe Sasha Banks just turns on Bayley and costs Tamina the title, but I just can't see that happening. I see Bayley, Sasha in a couple of months for the SmackDown Women's title. That's what I see them. That's what I see them doing. So in that regard, I think Bayley's going to retain. There'll be some BS with Sasha Banks. I don't know what they're going to do. Personally, it still baffles me that Sasha Banks wasn't in the Money in the Bank match, but nevertheless. So Bayley versus Tamina. I'm predicting Bayley to retain the SmackDown Women's title. That'll extend her reign to like 7 months or something, so who really cares? Next up, SmackDown Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way match. The New Day defending their titles against The Miz and John Morrison, the Forgotten Sons, and Lucha House Party. This match, I mean, I just don't care, you know? Like, who's going to win it? Either The New Day or the Forgotten Sons, because Miz and Morrison just had the titles. They lost them like 2 weeks ago. It'll make zero sense to give them back to Miz and Morrison. Lucha House Party, just no. Seriously speaking, you pulled them out of catering literally 2 weeks ago. They're not winning the titles. The Forgotten Sons, I can see them doing that. As crazy as I can see them giving the Forgotten Sons the titles just out of nowhere. This is something the WWE like to do. Like, a real kind of topical example. Look at Curtis Axel. I know he was recently released, but back in 2013, Axel was on the main roster for literally, as Curtis Axel for like 3 weeks. And they gave him the Intercontinental title. So WWE like to do this. They like to just bring people into new positions and just give them belts. So if the Forgotten Sons win this match, I won't be surprised at all. But that said, I think the New Day are going to retain the titles. Even though, honestly, it doesn't matter. It's the SmackDown tag titles. Those belts are worthless. Okay, the titles change hands in a singles triple threat match. Those belts mean nothing. So the New Day are going to retain the titles there. Next up, I guess I'll predict the Raw Tag Team titles because inevitably that's going to be a match on this show. We've got the Street Profits defending their belts against the Viking Raiders. This is another tag team match. WWE probably don't know who's winning it yet, okay, because this is World Wrestling Entertainment. They go by the seat of their pants. They have no clue who's winning these matches. Out of the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders, who do I think should have the titles? Well, for starters, I don't think it really matters who has the belts. It's the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders. Like, it's the Raw tag titles, the same titles which were held by Braun Strowman and a 10-year-old child, so those belts are irrelevant. As for who I see will win, I guess I'm going to say the Viking Raiders. I give them the titles back. It doesn't really matter, you know. It seriously doesn't matter. Those belts are redundant and worthless, so I'm going to predict the Viking Raiders. Then again, if the Street Profits just won, I wouldn't be surprised either, so that's my prediction there. Before I get into the 2 world titles, though, I guess I'll just... I know WWE are going to throw in a couple of extra matches because at the moment, the card that I'm looking at is 6 matches. Add in that Raw tag title at 7. This is WWE. You know, when they have like 7 matches, or 4, 5, 6, 7 matches announced for the show, they're probably going to throw 2 to 3 extra on the card. So presumably, they'll do what they did at WrestleMania. They'll throw like a Liv Morgan match in there. They'll throw Drew Gulak versus Nakamura or something. I don't really care. Okay, any match outside of the ones I'm really analyzing in this video don't mean anything and aren't worth my prediction. If you want to see my predictions for these matches, I'm sure over on my Twitter I'll say something, but that's about it. So then, our world titles. First up, the Universal Championship. Braun Strowman defending against Bray Wyatt. Now, it says that it's just regular Bray Wyatt, which this really baffles me. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. If you're having Braun Strowman defend his title against regular Mr. Rogers Bray Wyatt, why would Bray not harness the Fiend version of himself to take on Braun when the Fiend version of himself gives himself the best chance to win the title? You see what I'm saying? Like, it makes no sense that Bray would be the weaker version of himself in a Universal Championship match where he's challenging for the championship. It just makes no sense. So, if inevitably it is Braun Strowman versus Funhouse Mr. Rogers Bray Wyatt, I can very well see Braun Strowman retaining the championship. Which, once again, makes me throw up in my mouth. But if it's regular Mr. Rogers Bray Wyatt who shows up at Money in the Bank, Braun Strowman's retaining, okay? Braun Strowman is not losing the title to Funhouse Rogers Bray Wyatt. Then again, if Bray Wyatt shows up as the Fiend's winning the championship from Braun Strowman, and that'll be that. Okay, that's the simplest way I can put it, because really it's a lose-lose booking situation. Okay, it is a lose-lose. Braun Strowman, he wasn't even supposed to be in this position. This was supposed to be Roman Reigns, but of course everything happened, and now Reigns is getting the CM Punk treatment. Strowman's the champion, which still makes me sick. So Bray Wyatt, it's kind of the logical feud to make, because Bray lost the title to Goldberg, whatever. Basically, my prediction for this match bases on what kind of Bray Wyatt shows up. The Wikipedia currently says that it's just Bray Wyatt, which I'm assuming means the Funhouse version. So if that's the case, Braun Strowman is sadly beating Bray Wyatt and retaining. But if it is the Fiend, then Braun Strowman is walking out empty-handed. Bray Wyatt will be new Universal Champion. So that's my prediction for that. Lastly, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, WWE Championship. The match I'm most looking forward to. Granted, the viewership on Monday Night Raw for these guys' segments has been abysmal. I know their contract signing drew the lowest rating in Raw history as far as quarter hours. Drew like a 1.539 million viewer number, which is awful. I don't know what their Raw main event with Drew McIntyre and Murphy drew, but I don't think that would have been much better. So, yeah, McIntyre, Rollins. As far as how much it's drawing, it's really not drawing interest, but at the same time, you can't preload a show with 2,050 minutes of garbage and expect Drew McIntyre to save the show in the last 5 minutes. Like, it's not how it works. The match itself, it should be pretty obvious that Drew McIntyre is going to retain against Seth Rollins, but at the same time, I really can't see Rollins winning, because this is the thing. McIntyre, his big coronation in the quote-unquote main event of WrestleMania, and then he beat the Big Show in the other main event of WrestleMania. So McIntyre is the guy for now. Rollins should not be beating him. If Rollins beats McIntyre, I don't know what they're doing. I really feel like with Rollins, WWE just picked the first heel they had and just threw him at McIntyre, because, I mean, Rollins lost to Owens at WrestleMania, so it doesn't make much sense. So, yeah, Drew McIntyre is going to beat Seth Rollins to retain the Universal Championship. Where McIntyre goes from there, personally, do we see Money in the Bank cash-in? Hopefully Aleister Black, maybe. No, I don't see a cash-in happening at Money in the Bank. Do we see, I don't know, Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles for the title? Assuming Aleister Black's Mr. Money in the Bank. So I think we could see McIntyre versus Styles. Rollins, what he goes off and does, I don't know. Hopefully this Rollins-McIntyre thing doesn't extend through Backlash in June. I don't want to see 5 more weeks of McIntyre-Rollins. Okay, that is the main event feud on Raw. It's good. Like, they're not doing bad stuff, but we need just something fresh. And this program's only been going on for 3 weeks, but then again, I guess it's because Raw's so boring that McIntyre vs. Rollins feels just kind of dry. I don't know. So McIntyre's going to retain against Seth Rollins, and that's my Money in the Bank preview. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. I'm trying to keep the previews now pretty kind of brief, because especially a show like this, a lot of you guys don't care. Pro wrestling is very like uncool and very hard to get into at the moment without crowds, and I totally get that. So I've tried to save a bunch of time for this preview. I've made sure this isn't like a 40-minute preview for this show that no one really cares about. So that's the preview. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and sub. You guys know the drill. See ya.